Hello everyone, Weather Jamaica here. Welcome to this updated video on the weather across Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. It is Wednesday evening, September 13, 2023. Now before we jump into it, please ensure that you guys like the video, share it, subscribe and tap the notification bell so that you'll be notified every time I post a brand new video. Feel free to leave a comment down in the comment section letting me know what the weather's been like in your area recently. Also feel free to ask any weather related question that you might have about the future of the weather in your specific area. I respond to all comments and I really live for this stuff. Alright, so let us take a look at the United States Climate Prediction Center's Global Tropics Hazards Outlook for the next 3 weeks. We can see that they have the area that Jamaica is located in highlighted in some amount of shades of browns during the period from September 20 to the 26th, and we know the shades of brown on the key at the bottom represent some amount of below average rainfall. We can also see that we have some greens that represent above normal rainfall across sections of Florida and the main development region, not to mention some red and white shades that represent some amount of tropical cyclone formation probability. So there's a chance that we might still have some tropical systems forming out there across the main development region. If we even take a look a week after that, around the 27th to the 3rd of October, we can see that that area of possible tropical cyclone development that was across the main development region has shifted further westward, encompassing sections of the northeastern Caribbean, not to mention the eastern Pacific as well as the western Caribbean right there. So definitely this is what the CPC Climate Prediction Center is forecasting. We shall see exactly what unfolds. We know these things are not set in stone. Sometimes these predictions are made and then they have to be adjusted later on. So it's just a waiting game at this point. Alright, so let us take a look at the United States Climate Prediction Center, not Climate Prediction Center, the United States National Hurricane Center's forecast for the next 7 days. We can see that they still have Hurricane Lee, Hurricane Margot, and we have that era of possible tropical cyclone development across the main development region, and it has a 90% chance of developing into a tropical storm as it moves towards the northwest. So the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, all of these land areas are in the clear for now. If we take a look at Hurricane Lee, it is now a 105 mile per hour hurricane. It is moving towards the northwest at 10 miles per hour. We can see it right there located to the southwest of Bermuda. They're actually under tropical storm warning right now. They're definitely going to be feeling the effects as these tropical storm force winds extend far out from the center of Lee. Then afterwards, Lee is expected to move to the north and maybe affect portions of the northeastern sections of North America with some amount of hurricane or tropical storm conditions. So we shall see exactly what unfolds with that. As it relates to Hurricane Margot, it's still spinning away out there, not really sure about where it's actually wanting to go, but we can see the path actually takes it, makes it a loop and a circle, then it finally makes it out towards the north by next Monday. Right now it's packing maximum sustained winds of 90 miles per hour and it's moving to the north right now at 7 miles per hour. Alright, so let us take a look at the surface map of the Atlantic for this evening. We can see those areas that we just mentioned, Hurricane Lee, Hurricane Margot, and we can also see that area of possible tropical cyclone development across the main development region. So it used to be 2, now it's 1, so they've actually merged together to form one entity, one broad area of low pressure that could possibly develop as it moves towards the northwest. If we take a look at the visible satellite images before the sun went down, we can see Hurricane Lee right here spinning away to the north of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, and it's even pulling in some amount of low-level clouds, showers and thunderstorms into its circulation. Those are what we call feeder bands, feeding into that system. Not having any of that across Jamaica at this time, but it's definitely influencing the weather across the island right now. More of a northerly flow as opposed to the usual easterly flow, which explains why the heat is upon us these days. We don't have that usual easterly flow that we get to cool down the temperatures. Definitely hotter than normal these days, and Lee is definitely to blame. We can also see to the east of Lee that we have Hurricane Margot, and to the south of Margot we have that mass of clouds associated with that broad area flow pressure that has a chance of developing. The Caribbean is in the clear for the most part. Alright, so let's just take a look at what happened today across Jamaica. We can see that a post was made on our Twitter page, not only our Twitter page, but our Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok pages, highlighting some clouds developing across the island, especially southern Jamaica, during the afternoon. So definitely, these clouds brought in some amount of overcast skies, and we definitely had that thunderstorm activity, especially across sections of eastern St. Elizabeth, sections of Manchester, and sections of western Clarendon. Indeed got in on some of that afternoon thunder shower. If we take a look at the visible satellite images from today across Jamaica, we can see where for the most part we had more of a northerly flow of low-level winds and clouds across the island. Then we had that build-up of clouds, especially across southern parishes in Jamaica, that might have brought some amount of isolated showers to some spots, sections of St. Thomas, sections of St. Catherine, Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth. We can see the clouds even better on the visible satellite images than what we would see on the infrared satellite images. The infrared satellite images only show the high cold cloud tops that we saw with the deep burst of convection right there across sections of Manchester, western Clarendon, and sections of eastern St. Elizabeth. And we can even still see that we still have some amount of thunderstorm activity taking place right there across southwestern Clarendon, southern Manchester at this time, at recording hour. Taking a look at the Doppler radar images right now, we can see that rainfall that we just saw on the satellite images right there, as indicated by the greens and the yellows across the southern portions of Manchester, the southwestern portions of St. Elizabeth. So we know the greens represent moderate rainfall, the yellows represent strong rainfall, so they're definitely getting in on some amount of rainfall at this time. Taking a look at the temperatures right now, we can see we have 28 degrees Celsius in both Montego Bay and Kingston, and as usual as the night progresses, these temperatures should be getting lower. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, with Lee causing that, effect across the Caribbean in general, causing less easterly winds, we're still in for more higher than average temperatures, as indicated by those yellows, oranges across Jamaica. This map is valid from the Euro model for 18Z on Thursday, which is actually 1 p.m. on Thursday, 1 p.m. Jamaica time, and we see the same thing on the GFS model. Definitely going to be getting in on some amount of above normal temperatures for Thursday. And we know the average temperatures for the month of September in Jamaica is about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about the equivalent of 32 degrees Celsius. So if we should be getting 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above average as indicated by those orange colors, we should be getting anywhere from 32 to 35 degrees Celsius at most. Taking a look at the dry air map, we do see some pockets of dry air as indicated by those yellows across sections of the central and western Caribbean, even the southern Caribbean right there. But for the most part, we have a lot of moist air in the region. As relates to the Saharan dust, we can see that majority of the Saharan dust for the Caribbean has dwindled. We don't have any amount of Saharan dust across the area. Majority of the Saharan dust is right there across sections of the northeastern main development region and sections of Africa. Taking a look at the wave forecast for tomorrow for Jamaica, we see that we have 0.5 meter wave heights or less across the island, and that's due to the fact that the winds are completely non-existent. We're actually going to be receiving variable winds. We can see the winds coming in from the north on the north coast, winds coming in from the south on the south coast, and we see all that air piling up across sections of some inland areas of central and western Jamaica, and we see that both the Euro and the GFS models are showing the same thing. And we know what happens when all of that air piles up, as indicated by those blue shades. We have those cumulus clouds becoming cumulonimbus clouds. We have that daytime heating, that diurnal convection contributes to some amount of afternoon rainfall, and we can see that the upper level wind shear The upper level winds are going to be blowing in from the southwest on the Euro model for 1 p.m. on Thursday, and we see that on the GFS model as well. And we know that that means we're going to have more of the overcast skies and some of the thunderstorms spilling into mainly northern parishes in Jamaica. Alright, so let us take a look at the rainfall forecast. We can see the blues that represent rainfall across sections of the island for tomorrow. This map is valid from the Euro model for 3 p.m. Jamaica time, and we can see something similar on the GFS model. Right there, sections of central and western Jamaica, not so much eastern parishes in Jamaica, but we're definitely in for some amount of rainfall across the island for tomorrow. So we know we look for consensus, and when both the Euro and the GFS models are showing something similar, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Even the accumulated precipitation forecast showing some amount of rainfall for tomorrow from the Euro, only up to 0.25 of an inch of rainfall for the total, while the GFS is showing a less rainfall total, up to 0.19 of an inch of rainfall there. But we do see the consensus sections of Jamaica definitely going to be in for some amount of rainfall on Thursday. And we're indeed grateful that we're going to be getting in on that rainfall. We're in the month of September. We're in a primary rainy season. We usually receive an uptick in the rainfall all across the island, so we'll take all that we can get to put a dent in the hydrological drought that we're currently experiencing. Alright, so that's it for the forecast across Jamaica. Let's focus our attention on the rest of the Caribbean. So we don't see much happening across the Caribbean basin in general, from the eastern to the western Caribbean. Only those clouds across sections of Hispaniola and maybe Puerto Rico, as indicated by those feeder bands coming into sections of Hurricane Lee. And we can also see some clouds across sections of Venezuela, Colombia, the Central American countries as usual, Belize, Mexico, Honduras, and Guatemala. Taking a look at the Doppler radar images of the northeastern Caribbean for today, we can see that we indeed had some amount of isolated passing showers across some spots for today, not so much widely spread showers at all. If we take a look at the Barbados radar, we can see that we don't have much happening across those areas either. Nothing for Trinidad or Tobago. Maybe some rainfall for the waters to the north of Barbados, maybe even spilling into sections of St. Lucia, but not much happening these days at all. Taking a look at the Doppler radar images, the wider view of Doppler radar images that is, we can see that rainfall that we indeed had across sections of Hispaniola for today, as indicated by those feeder bands as we saw in the satellite images. You can also see some rainfall right there, just like what we saw in the satellite images, across sections of Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico, and Guatemala as well. Taking a look at the temperature forecast for tomorrow, just like what Jamaica is going to be experiencing for tomorrow, the rest of the Caribbean should be experiencing the same, with the lack of wind flow. So definitely up to 3, even 4 degrees Celsius above normal temperatures, as indicated by both the Euro and the GFS models, especially across sections of northern South America, as indicated by those reds, maybe even spilling into 6 or 7 degrees above normal temperatures for those spots. As relates to the Saharan dust, we're indeed grateful that for a majority of the Caribbean, lots of moisture across the region. We don't have much in the way of Saharan dust, no hazy weather, no sinusitis, no allergic reaction is going to be triggered at all, and we hope it stays that way for the rest of the year. As it relates to the wave forecast, we can see that Hurricane Lee is definitely churning up the waters right there to the north of the Caribbean, as indicated by those purples and reds that represent 2-meter wave heights or more. So definitely some high waves across the eastern US, the eastern Bahamas, the northern Caribbean islands, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico. Definitely getting in on some large waves. We see that on both the Euro and the GFS model, and we know that that's because of the winds that Hurricane Lee is producing. Definitely some strong winds. The yellows we know represent 25 knot winds, and as we get closer to the center, we get those hurricane force winds, just like what we mentioned earlier, 105 miles per hour at closer to the center. As we can see, we have more greens across the Caribbean basin, maybe 10 to 15 knot winds at most, coming in from the southeast or the east southeast. As it relates to the rain forecast, however, we do see that both the Euro and the GFS models are in consensus. They're in agreement that definitely more rain in store for sections of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, maybe some isolated shores for Cuba, Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, sections of Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama as usual, and we can also see lots of rainfall in store for sections of Colombia and western Venezuela. We don't see much happening across the Windward or Leeward Islands at all, not to mention eastern Venezuela, Guyana, Suriname, or French Guyana. And when we take a look at the GFS model, we see much of the same happening, and we know that when both maps are showing something similar like this, the chances of it actually happening are much higher. Alright, so that's it for today. Thanks for watching.